Hello, amazing explorers, and welcome back to our channel. Have you ever heard of a place called Yellowstone? It's a super famous park in the United States, like a giant playground made by nature itself. It's home to cool geysers that shoot water high into the sky like Old Faithful, and lots of wild animals like bison and bears. But imagine if this incredible park had to close its doors. That's exactly what happened a little while ago, and it was a really big deal. Today we were going to be detectives and look at some amazing pictures taken from way up in space to understand why. So, what happened? In June of 2022, something incredible and a little bit scary occurred. A huge amount of rain, much more than usual, fell on the mountains around Yellowstone. At the same time, the weather got warmer, and a lot of snow that had been sitting on the mountaintops all winter started to melt really, really fast. Think about what happens when you leave an ice cube out on a warm day. It turns into a puddle of water, right? Now imagine millions and millions of giant ice cubes melting all at once, plus a giant rainstorm. All that water had to go somewhere. It all flowed down into the rivers that run through the park, like the Yellowstone River and the Gardner River. But it was just too much water for the rivers to handle. They got bigger and angrier, like a bathtub overflowing, but on a massive scale. This is called a flood, and it wasn't just any flood. It was what scientists call a historic flood, meaning one of the biggest they had ever seen in that area. The water was so powerful it washed away roads, making them crumble like cookies. It even swept away bridges that cars and people used to get around the park. It was like nature decided to completely redecorate. Because the roads and bridges were gone, it was no longer safe for people to be inside the park. Imagine trying to drive to a friend's house and the street is just gone. Park officials had to make a very important decision: to close Yellowstone to all visitors. This was a huge deal because millions of people visit every year. They had to get everyone who was already there out safely and tell everyone who was planning to come that they had to wait. It was a massive shutdown, all because of the powerful force of water. Now, here's the super cool part. How do we know so much about what happened? From space. Satellites are like cameras that fly way, way above the Earth, constantly taking pictures. They can see things that we can't from the ground. Scientists use these satellites to look at Yellowstone before and after the flood. The before pictures showed the rivers as thin, winding blue lines, just like you'd see on a map. But the after pictures? Whoa. The rivers looked wide, muddy, and brown. They had completely changed their shape, carving new paths through the land. These satellite images were like clues in a mystery. They showed scientists exactly where the damage was worst. They could see which roads were washed out and where the river had overflowed its banks the most. This was super helpful for the people working to fix the park. Instead of having to walk or fly over every single inch of this huge park, they could look at the satellite photos to get a bird's-eye view and make a plan. It's like having a treasure map that shows you exactly where the problems are. For example, the town of Gardner, Montana, which is right at the north entrance of the park, was completely cut off. The main road leading into it was destroyed by the flooding Gardner River. Satellite pictures clearly showed the chunks of road that were just missing, swallowed by the raging water. Another area, near a place called Cook City, was also isolated. The satellite photos helped crews understand the massive challenge they were facing to reconnect these communities. It wasn't just about fixing a few potholes. It was about rebuilding entire sections of road from scratch in very difficult, mountainous terrain. So the park was closed, but the work was just beginning. Teams of engineers and construction workers came in. Using the information from the satellite images and ground surveys, they started the huge job of rebuilding. They had to build new roads, sometimes in new places where they would be safer from future floods. They worked incredibly fast, because so many people and local businesses depend on the park being open. Within just a few weeks, they managed to reopen parts of the park, which was an amazing achievement. They created a temporary system to let people in, and slowly but surely Yellowstone started to come back to life. What does this whole story teach us? First, it shows us how incredibly powerful nature is. We might build strong roads and bridges, but a big flood can change everything in just a few hours. It's a reminder to always have respect for the natural world. Second, it shows how clever humans can be. By using amazing technology like satellites, we can understand huge events like this and figure out the best way to respond and recover. It's science and teamwork in action. And finally, it is a story about resilience. That is a fancy word for being able to bounce back after something tough happens. The rivers changed their course, the landscape was scarred, but the park, the animals, and the people all began to recover. Yellowstone is still there, still beautiful, and still welcoming visitors to see its wonders. The scars from the flood are now part of its long and amazing history. It is a living example of how nature is always changing and how we can learn to adapt right alongside it. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey to Yellowstone from space. It's amazing what we can learn by looking at our world from a different perspective. If you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next exploration. See you next time.